They checked the list twice, then a third time, and somehow my name still wasn't there. The woman at the entrance smiled. Perfect posture. Perfect tone. The kind of smile you learn at places like Ritz-Carlton, Polite. Completely dismissive. I'm sorry. Mom? She glanced at the tablet again. This is a private event. Behind her, light. Expensive crystal chandeliers. White orchids suspended in the air. Champagne moving through the room like it belonged there. And the wall covered in names people don't question. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Cartier. The kind of room you don't get invited to. You earn it, or you marry into it. I didn't move, didn't argue, didn't explain. I just looked past her, and I saw her Vanessa Cole, standing exactly where the light hits best. Silver, silk, custom, something between Dior archive and calculated attention. She looked like she belonged. She didn't, not where it mattered. She laughed, champagne in hand, surrounded by people who used to look through me. And right beside her, Daniel, my ex, wearing a Tom Ford jacket. I picked out, he leaned in, said something, she smiled. Not because it was funny, because people were watching. That's when he saw me. Just for a second, he froze. And then he pretended he didn't. That told me everything. Ma'am? The woman at the door again, softer now, but firmer. If you don't have an invitation. She gestured slightly. I'll need to ask you to step aside. Step aside. That's how they say, you don't belong here, without actually saying it. People were watching now. Not openly, quietly, because humiliation in rooms like this is entertainment. I turned to her and smiled. Not embarrassed, not angry, amused. Of course, I said, because she was right. I wasn't on the guest list. And that, it was exactly how I wanted it. 6 months ago, this room didn't exist. No lights, no brands, no guest list, just a file. On my Apple MacBook, a concept, a structure, a room designed. Before it had walls, I built this. Every sponsor, every name, every seat. I knew who would stand where, who would speak to who would pretend not to know each other. Until the cameras turned, I built all of it. And Daniel, he loved it. Of course he did. He loves things after they already exist. We need this. He told me that night, I almost corrected him. I didn't. That was my first mistake. Then came Vanessa. She didn't enter loud. She entered useful. That's what they called it. But I knew exactly what she was. Not help. Replacement. She studied me. Not obviously, but enough. The questions, the tone, the timing. How did you get Cartier so fast? You make this look effortless. She wasn't impressed. She was mapping me. And Daniel, he helped her. Meetings shifted. Decisions changed. My plan became their version. And one day, just like that, I was out. Creative differences. He said, I remember the room. I remember her sitting in my chair, smiling. You built something beautiful. She told me, then we'll take it from here. I didn't argue. I didn't fight, because in that moment, I realized something they didn't. They didn't understand what they took. And more importantly, they didn't understand what I never gave them, the venue. That was the part they missed. Because Daniel thought it was a contract and Vanessa thought everything can be negotiated. They were both wrong. 3 weeks before I left, I made one decision. Quiet, legal. For now, I bought the venue, not directly through a structure. They would never think to check clean, layered, invisible. And tonight, it mattered. Ma'am, the woman again, now slightly uncomfortable, security watching, people whispering, because this was supposed to end already. I reached into my bag, slow, always slow, and took out a black card, no logo, no brand, just a name. Mine. She frowned. I'm sorry. What is? Scan it. A pause. She hesitated. Then did it. Bape. Silence. Then another tone. Lower. Heavier. Everything changed. Her face. Her posture. Her voice. I'm so sorry. Now she said my name. Not ma'am. My name. Behind her, the doors unlocked. Clean. Automatics. Inside, the lights shifted. Subtle, but real. Because the system had just recognized authority. And for the first time that night, I stepped forward, not as a guest, not as an outsider, but as the one person in that room who never needed an invitation. Because I didn't build my way into the room, I built the room itself. The doors opened, not loudly, just enough, but inside, something shifted. Not the music, not the lights. The room, people like them, they don't react to noise. They react to power, and they felt it. Before they understood it, I stepped in. No announcement, no introduction, just presence. The floor beneath my heels, polished marble, soft reflections, every step controlled, not slow, measured, because rushing is what people do. When they're trying to belong, I didn't need to. The conversations didn't stop, but they changed. Lower, softer. Eyes started turning. Anabewan, a man near the bar paused mid-sentence. A woman in Valentino missed her cue to laugh. Someone lifted a glass and forgot to drink. That's how it starts. Not attention. Disruption. Vanessa saw me first. Of course she did. Women like her, they scan the room constantly, tracking threats, tracking hierarchy, tracking anything that might change where they stand. Her smile froze, not gone, paused, because her brain needed time to process something impossible. I wasn't supposed to be inside. Daniel turned next, slower, and this time, he didn't recover as fast. His eyes locked on me, and stayed there too long. That was mistake number one. I kept walking toward them, through the center of the room, not around people, through them, because space moves differently when people aren't sure if they're supposed to stop you. No one did. A server stepped aside without thinking. A guest shifted half a step back. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" No one answered. That was the interesting part, because in rooms like this, if no one can place you, you become dangerous. I stopped 3 steps away from them. Close enough, not too close. Vanessa recovered first. Of course she did. She always does. Her smile came back, sharper this time. Controlled, calculated, you're not supposed to be here. Her voice was soft, but it carried. People nearby slowed down, pretending not to listen. I tilted my head slightly. Neither are you. A pause. Just enough. Daniel exhaled. Okay, what is this? He said. Not loud, but tight, careful, because now he wasn't performing anymore. He was calculating. Vanessa let out a small laugh. The kind that tries to reset the room. I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said smoothly. Then she turned slightly, just enough for others to see her profile. This is a private event. There it was. Reclaim control. Define the frame. Position me as the outsider. I nodded. I know. Silence. That wasn't the answer she expected, because I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I didn't justify my presence, and that made it worse. Daniel stepped closer, lowered his voice. You need to leave. Need. Interesting choice. Do I? I asked. He didn't answer immediately, because now he wasn't sure. That was mistake number 2. Vanessa stepped in, faster this time, more aggressive. You're causing a scene, she said. I glanced around. Soft music, people watching, phones slightly raised. No, I said calmly. I'm revealing one. That landed. You could feel it. A shift, subtle, but real, because now this wasn't just an awkward moment anymore. It was becoming something else, something people wanted to understand. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Just slightly, you need to go, she repeated. This time, less smooth. More force. I looked at her. Really looked. The dress, the posture, the confidence, all perfectly constructed. All of this looks good on you, I said softly. Her expression flickered. Not enough for everyone to see. Enough for me. But it's not yours. Silence. Daniel stepped forward again. This isn't the time. No, I said, and this time, I cut through him. Clean, sharp. This is exactly the time. The room had gone quiet now. Not completely, but enough, because people were no longer pretending this wasn't happening. They were watching, learning, choosing sides, without realizing it yet. Vanessa's voice dropped, cold now. You're embarrassing yourself. There it was. The last move, push shame, force retreat. I smiled. Not wide, not obvious, just enough that would require me to be in the wrong place. I said, Pause. I'm not. Daniel's face changed. This time, he didn't hide it, because something deep down was starting to connect. Not fully, not yet, but enough. That was mistake number 3. He said my name. What did you do? Too quiet for the room, loud enough for me. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked past them, toward the far side of the ballroom, where the event director stood, watching, waiting, because unlike them, he already knew. I held his gaze and gave the smallest nod. Not dramatic, not obvious, but intentional, and that's when the room shifted again. Not emotionally, structurally, because someone with authority had just been acknowledged, and everyone who understood power felt it instantly. Vanessa turned slightly, following my line of sight. Her smile finally disappeared. What is this? She asked. But this time, she wasn't asking me. She was asking the room, and the room was about to answer. I stepped back, just one step, giving space, not retreating, creating a stage, because this part was never supposed to come from me. And then someone started walking toward us. Slow, confident, certain, the event director. And for the first time that night, Vanessa didn't look like she was hosting anymore. She looked like she was waiting for permission. And that was the moment everything started to break. He didn't rush. That was the first thing everyone noticed. The event director walking toward us. Slow, confident, certain, not looking at Vanessa, not looking at Daniel, looking at me, and that changed everything because people like them. They understand hierarchy before they understand truth, and right now, the hierarchy had just shifted. Vanessa straightened, smile back, polished, controlled. "Hi," she said smoothly. "Reclaim the room. Reclaim authority." "I think there's been a misunderstanding." He didn't even look at her. He stopped in front of me. Slight nod. Respect. "Miss Val?" Not loud, but clear, enough for everyone nearby to hear. Enough for the room to feel it. "Vanessa Frozi." Not fully, just enough. "What is this?" she asked. But now, her voice had changed. Less control, more uncertainty. The director turned, finally, looked at her, polite, professional, distant. There's no misunderstanding. Silence. Clean. Sharp. Because that sentence cut the room in half. Daniel stepped forward. "Now, faster? This is ridiculous," he said. But his voice didn't land because now people were watching him the way they watch someone who might be wrong, and that's dangerous. The director continued, "Miss Vale is the owner of this venue." Silence. Not confusion. Not noise. Just impact, because everyone in that room understood exactly what that meant. Vanessa laughed. Too fast, too sharp. No. That's not possible. There it was. Denial. "Stay one." Daniel shook his head. "This is some kind of joke." "It's not," the director said. And this time, he didn't soften it. He stepped slightly aside, gesturing toward the room. "This entire property, a Pause, is under her control." That's when it hit not just them, the room, because suddenly, everything people were standing on belonged to me. The floor, the lights, the stage, the event itself, all of it. Vanessa's hand tightened around her glass. Just slightly, but enough, because now she wasn't hosting anymore. She was standing inside someone else's space. Daniel looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, and he saw it. Not the woman he replaced. Not the partner he underestimated. Something else. He started, then stopped because he didn't know what word to use anymore. I stepped forward, calm, controlled. "You should have read the contract." I said, soft, but precise. That landed harder than anything else. Because now, this wasn't luck. This was design. Vanessa shook her head. "This doesn't change anything," she said quickly. Too quickly. "We're still hosting this event." There it was. Last attempt. Hold control. Define reality. I smiled. Small. Measured. "Are you?" I asked. Silence. And then I turned, walked past them, toward the stage. No one stopped me. No one even tried, because now no one knew if they could. The music faded. Not abruptly, subtly, because someone behind the scenes had already made the call. The lights shifted. Warmer. Focused. The kind of lighting designed for one thing. Attention. I stepped onto the stage, picked up the microphone, didn't rush, didn't look nervous. Because this wasn't new. This was just timing. "Good evening." My voice carried, clear, effortless. The entire room turned, fully now. No pretending, no whispering. Just watching, I want to thank all of you. A pause. For being here tonight. Vanessa stepped forward. Stop this. Too late? I continued. You were invited. I let the silence stretch, just long enough, by people who don't own this room. Gasps. Actual gasps. Phones lifted, not hidden anymore, open, recording. Because now, this wasn't private. This was history. Daniel moved toward the stage. Fast now. Turn that off. But security stepped in, not aggressively, just enough, because orders had already changed, and they weren't his anymore. I looked at him, calm. You said you'd take it from here. I said, pause. I let you. That broke him. Not loudly, internally, because now he understood something irreversible. He never took anything. He was allowed to hold it. Temporarily, Vanessa stood frozen, center of the room. Dress perfect. Posture perfect. Control. Because power isn't what you wear. It's what the room follows. And the room was no longer following her. I turned back to the audience, smiled, and said the line that ended it. This event, pause, was always mine. Silence. Then, applause. Not polite, not careful. Real, because power recognizes power. And just like that, they didn't lose the event. They lost the room. Applause doesn't last. That's the thing people don't understand. Power isn't the moment. It's what happens after the room had shifted, but it hadn't settled. And people like Daniel, they don't lose quietly. They adapt fast, too fast. The applause faded, not completely, just enough for something else to enter. Doubt. Vanessa moved first. Of course she did. She always does. She stepped forward, not toward me, toward the room, reclaimed the audience. That was her instinct. Her voice came back, smooth, controlled, professional. Everyone, please. She smiled, and just like that, the performance restarted. There's clearly been some confusion tonight. Confusion. Interesting word. Not wrong. Just redirected. Daniel stepped in beside her. Faster this time. More aggressive. We appreciate your patience, he added. His tone changed. Not defensive. Authoritative. The version of him people were used to. The version that worked. This event is still proceeding as planned. There it was. Narrative control. If you can't stop the truth, you reframe it. People shifted. Not leaving. Not fully convinced. But listening again. Because uncertainty creates opportunity. Vanessa continued. We're working through a legal clarification with the venue. Legal. That word matters. It creates distance, complexity, doubt. And doubt is enough to slow belief. Phones lowered, just slightly. People started whispering again. Different tone now. Less shock. More analysis. That was dangerous. Because once a room starts thinking, it can move away from you. Daniel looked at me, and for a second, he smiled. Small, confident, like he thought he found an angle. You should leave, he said quietly. Not a request, a strategy. Before this becomes something you can't control. There it was. Threat. Soft, but real. I stepped down from the stage, slowly, not reacting, not interrupting, just watching, because this part was predictable. Vanessa turned to the crowd again. We want tonight to remain what it was meant to be. She paused, perfect timing, a celebration. That landed because people came for that not conflict, not drama, comfort, status, access. And if she could give them that back, they would let the moment go. That's how rooms like this work. They don't chase truth. They follow stability. And for a second, it almost worked. Music started again. Soft, careful. Servers resumed movement. Controlled. People exhaled. Just slightly. That was the reset. And if they held it, they could survive this. Vanessa glanced at me. That look, sharp, focused, winning. She thought she stabilized it. She thought the moment had passed. Daniel stepped closer, lowered his voice again. You made your point, he said. Pause. Now walk away. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time that night, I almost smiled. Because this was the mistake. They thought this was about exposure. It wasn't, it was about control. And they were still playing inside my system. I tilted my head slightly. Do you hear that? I asked. He frowned. What? I didn't answer because right then the music stopped. Again, but this time, not softly, not controlled. Kut, clean, dead. The lights shifted. Not warm anymore. White, sharp, unforgiving. The entire room froze because that was not part of their plan. Vanessa turned instantly. What's happening? No one answered because no one knew except me. The main screen behind the stage lit up, not with branding, not with sponsors, with something else. Data. Clean, structured, undeniable. Vanessa's face changed. This time, she couldn't hide it. What is that? She said. But she already knew. Daniel stepped forward. Fast, too fast, turned that off. But no one moved, because no one was listening to him anymore. I took one step forward, just one, and said quietly, You wanted control back? Pause. So I gave you time to try. Silence. Heavy. Final. Then I looked at the screen, and the room followed, because now they understood something. This wasn't over. This was escalation. And for the first time since the night began, Daniel and Vanessa weren't managing the situation anymore. They were inside it, and it was about to get worse. The screen didn't flicker. It didn't glitch. It didn't hesitate. It appeared clean, sharp, deliberate, like it had been waiting. The entire room turned not slowly, all at once, because instinct always follows clarity. Rows of data filled the screen. Names, transaction, timestamps, contract layers, clean, structured, impossible to ignore. Vanessa took a step back. Just one. But this time, everyone saw it. What is that? She said. Her voice, not smooth anymore. Not controlled. Real. I didn't answer. Because I didn't need to. The screen answered for me. Slide 1. Original event ownership structure. My name, centered. Clear. Not hidden. Not implied. Documented. Signed. Dated. The room leaned in. Physically, like gravity had shifted. Daniel shook his head. This proves nothing. But no one was listening. Because truth, when it's clean, doesn't need permission. Slide 2, contract transfer attempt. His name, Vanessa's namey. Side by side, highlighted, time-stamped. 3 days after I was removed. A murmur spread. Low, sharp, uncontrolled. Because now, and this wasn't confusion anymore. This was intent. Vanessa's eyes moved, fast, reading, processing, searching for an angle. There has to be context, she started. But the words, didn't land because the next slide cut through everything, rejected authorization, denied, flagged, logged, multiple attempts, all blocked, all recorded. The room shifted again. Not curiosity now. Distance. People stepped back, subtle, but real, because association is risk, and risk moves faster than loyalty. Daniel stepped forward. Anger now. Visible. This is manipulated. No. I said, quiet, but final. This is archived. Silence. That word mattered because archived means it existed before tonight. Before this moment, before any of this could be staged, Vanessa's composure cracked. Not fully, but enough. You're twisting this, she said. But her voice, it was already losing authority because the room had made a decision, not verbally, but collectively. They were no longer listening to her. They were watching her, and there's a difference, a dangerous one. Slide 4. Internal communication log. Message. Cleanly extracted, time-stamped, verified. Daniel's name. Vanessa's name. Back and forth. Short lines, careless lines. The kind people write when they think no one will ever read them. Push her out before final sign-off. Once the venue is secured, she's irrelevant. She won't see it coming. Silence, heavy, unforgiving. No one moved because now this wasn't business. This was betrayal. Visible, undeniable. Vanessa's hand shook, just slightly, but this time she couldn't hide it. That's not, she started, but stopped, because there was no version of that sentence that worked anymore. Daniel looked at me, and this time, there was no calculation left. Just realization. You planned this? He said, not accusing, understanding. I held his gaze. Calm. Yes. That word ended him. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely, because now everyone in that room understood something they couldn't unsee. This wasn't exposure, this was control, and he had never had it. The crowd shifted again, phones fully raised. Now, no hiding, no subtlety, because now this wasn't private anymore. This was value, information, leverage, and people like them collect that instinctively. Vanessa stepped back again. Another step. Then another, until she wasn't center anymore. She was outside it, watching her own collapse happen in real time. I built this. I said, not loud, not emotional, just truth, and you tried to take it? Silence. Then I added, and failed. That broke the last piece, because now there was no recovery path left. No narrative. No spin. No version of reality they could sell back to the room. Daniel exhaled, slow, empty, because he understood something most people never do. Too late, he was never the one in control. He was the one being allowed to think he was. Vanessa didn't speak again. She couldn't, because words require belief, and the room no longer believed her. I stepped forward, not toward them, past them, because they were no longer the center. The room was, and the room had already chosen. That's the thing about power. You don't take it back. Once the room gives it away, it didn't stay inside. That was the part they never planned for. Moments like this, they don't belong to rooms. They escape them. Fast. Phones were already up. Not hidden anymore. Not subtle. Open, recording everything. The screen, the data, the silence. Vanessa, Daniel, standing in the middle of it, with nowhere to go. Someone near the front whispered, "Oh my God." And that was it. The first break, because once someone says it out loud, everyone else stops pretending. A notification sound, then another, then 10 more, phones buzzing, all at once, not random, connected, because someone had already uploaded it. Clips, short, clean, perfect. Vanessa's face. The messages on screen. Daniel stepping forward, failing. And the caption already written for them. They tried to steal the event from the woman who owned the venue. It spread instantly because it had everything: power, betrayal, wealth, humiliation. The exact combination people don't scroll past. I watched it happen in real time. Across the room, people weren't watching me anymore. They were watching their phones, refreshing, checking, confirming, because truth, once it's external, becomes real. Vanessa's phone vibrated. Once, then again, then continuously. She looked down, and I saw it the moment she realized this wasn't contained anymore. "What is this?" she whispered. But no one answered, because everyone already knew. Daniel grabbed his phone fast, too fast. His screen lit up, notifications stacking, mentions, message. He scrolled, stopped, scrolled again. Like if he moved fast enough, he could outrun it. He couldn't. No. He muttered, quiet, almost to himself, "This isn't." But it was, and worse, it was accelerating. A man near the back turned his phone around, showed it to someone else. "Isn't that him?" A woman nodded. Slowly, "Yeah, it is." That was the second break. Recognition. Because once a face becomes public, it doesn't go back. Vanessa stepped forward, desperate now. "Everyone, please, this is being taken out of context." But her voice was gone. Not literally, but effectively, because no one was listening anymore. They were watching, and worse, they were recording. Daniel turned to me. "Enga, real now, not controlled." "What did you do?" he snapped. I looked at him. Calm. I didn't do anything. Pause. I just let it out. That hit because he understood, too late, this wasn't an attack. It was a release, and once something is released, you don't control where it goes. Across the room, someone laughed, not loudly, but sharp, uncomfortable, because this wasn't just shocking anymore. It was shifting into something else. Entertainment. And that's where it becomes dangerous. Because people don't defend you. When you become content, Vanessa's composure broke fully this time. "You set this up?" she said, voice shaking, eyes sharp. "You planned all of this?" I held her gaze. Didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it. Just let the silence answer, because silence is louder than defense. Her phone buzzed again. She looked down, and this time, her face dropped, not controlled, not hidden, gone. "What?" she whispered. Daniel stepped closer. "What is it?" She turned the screen toward him, and I saw it. The headline, already written, already spreading, "Luxury Gala Scandal, Hosts Exposed by Venue Owner." Below it, their faces. Captured, perfect, unforgiving. Daniel went still, completely still, because that's the moment men like him understand something irreversible. This isn't a situation anymore. It's a narrative, and narratives don't ask for your permission. People were stepping away now. Subtle, but intentional conversations shifting, distance increasing. Because proximity is risk, and risk spreads fast. The sponsors noticed, of course they did. Brands don't wait. They react quick, precisi. Quietly, the logos on the screen flickered. Then one disappeared. Then another, not dramatic, but devastating, because those names were the event. Without them, there was nothing left to hold. Vanessa saw it. And this time, she couldn't hide anything. No. 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 She moved toward the screen, like she could fix it, like she could stop it. She couldn't. Daniel didn't move. He just stood there, watching as everything he thought he built collapsed. Not over months. Not over weeks. Minute. That's all it took. Minutes. I stepped back. Just slightly, because I didn't need to be in the center anymore. They were, and the room was done protecting them. That's the moment it always happens. Not when the truth comes out. Not when people realize it. But when they decide you're no longer worth defending. I looked at Daniel one last time and said quietly, "This is what control looks like." Silence. Heavy. Final. Because now, there was no version of this they could take back. Not tonight. Not ever. And the worst part, this wasn't even the end. It was just the part everyone could see. No one defended them. That was the moment, not when the data appeared, not when the video spread, but now, when the room decided they were alone. Vanessa looked around, not dramatically, just searching for one face, one ally, one person who would step forward and say something no one did. Not the investors she smiled at, not the brands she name-dropped, not the people who had been laughing with her just minutes ago. They had all moved. Not far, just enough to say, "We're not part of this." Daniel noticed it too. Of course he did. Because men like him, they measure rooms instinctively. And right now, the room had erased him. He tried once more, just once. "This is being misinterpreted," he said. His voice didn't carry, not because it was quiet, because no one cared. That's the difference. Vanessa stepped forward again, but slower now, careful, like she was walking on something unstable. "You're making a mistake," she said. Not to me, to the room, to anyone who might still listen. "You don't understand the full picture." A man near the front turned away, didn't even pretend to engage. Another woman checked her phone mid-sentence. Someone behind them laughed, soft, but sharp. That was it. Respect. Vanessa stopped speaking because she felt it. That invisible shift, the moment a room decides you're no longer worth hearing. Daniel exhaled, slow, heavy, and then he did something worse than arguing. He said nothing, because silence, when it comes from them, means they understand they lost. Completely, Vanessa's hand dropped to her side. Her posture changed just slightly, but enough, because confidence, when it's real, doesn't break like that. She looked at me, no smile, no mask, just anger. "Rough. You think this makes you powerful?" she said. There it was. The last line. The final attempt to flip the frame. I stepped forward, calm, measured. "No," I said. "Pause. This just shows you what power looks like." Silence. Total. Because now, there was nothing left to argue. Nothing left to spin. Nothing left to save. Daniel looked at me, and for the first time, there was no arrogance, no strategy, not control, just understanding. You let us build this, he said quietly. I held his gaze. Yes. That word hit harder than everything else tonight, because now he finally understood the truth. He didn't steal anything. He was allowed to believe he did. And that illusion was the only thing he ever had. Vanessa shook her head. Slowly, like she was trying to reject reality. This isn't over, she said. But it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like hope, and hope without power is just noise. No one reacted. Not one person, because the room had already moved on. Not physically, mentally, they weren't watching Vanessa anymore. They weren't watching Daniel, they were watching me. And that was the final collapse, because in rooms like this, attention is currency, and they had just lost all of it. Vanessa took a step back, then another, until she wasn't center anymore, just present. Daniel didn't move. He just stood there, in the same spot where he thought he was in control. Now, he looked like a guest who overstayed. No one approached him. No one spoke to him. No one even made eye contact, because association was now liability. And liability gets cut, falsed. I looked around the room at every face, every reaction, every silent decision being made. And then I did the simplest thing. I stepped back off the center, gave the room space again, because I didn't need it anymore. They did, and the room had already chosen. That's the part people misunderstand about revenge. It's not about destroying someone. It's about removing the version of them that other people believed in. And once that's gone, there's nothing left to defend. I looked at Daniel one last time and said quietly, you were never the one they followed. Pause. You were just the one they saw. Silence. And that was the worst thing I could have taken from him. Because reputation, once it breaks in a room like this, never comes back the same. Vanessa didn't speak again. She couldn't, because there was nothing left to say that anyone would believe. And Daniel, he didn't argue, didn't fight, didn't even try. Because deep down, he knew this wasn't a loss. This was exposure. And exposure doesn't fade. It follows you into every room, every deal, every conversation, forever. I turned, walked away, not fast, not slow, just finished, because the moment had already passed, and behind me, no one followed them anymore. This story contains fictionalized elements for entertainment and educational purposes. I didn't stay. That was the first thing. I didn't wait for apologies. Didn't wait for explanations. Didn't wait to see how far they would fall. Because I already knew. In rooms like that, collapse doesn't happen loudly. It happens quietly. And then it spreads. I walked out the same way I walked in. Calm. Measured. Unstoppable. The doors opened. Again, but this time, no one questioned it. Outside, the air felt different. Not lighter, clearer, like something had been removed. Behind me, the event didn't recover. It couldn't, because events like that don't survive broken trust. They disappear. Quietly, within hours, the clips were everywhere. Short, sharp, perfectly edited by people who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Daniel's face, Vanessa's voice. The screen, the moment everything shifted, millions of views. Then more, because people don't watch success, they watch collapse, The sponsors moved fast. Of course they did. Names disappeared. Statements released, carefully worded, revaluating association, aligning with values. They never say what happened. They just leave. That's how power protects itself. Daniel lost everything in layers. Not all at once. That would have been easier. First, the calls stopped. Then, the meetings. Then, the invitations. The rooms that once opened for him didn't anymore. Not because they couldn't, because they chose not to. That's worse. Because rejection, when it's silent, lasts longer. Vanessa tried to recover. Of course she did. People like her always do. Statements, clarification, controlled interviews, carefully curated narratives. But there was a problem. She had already been seen, and once people see the real version of you, they don't forget it. Her name still appeared, but differently. Not admiration. Association. A warning. A story people told to explain what not to trust. And that kind of reputation doesn't fade. It settles slowly, permanently, weeks passed, then months, and the noise faded, because it always does. But the consequences? They stayed. I built something new, not louder, not bigger, better, cleaner, no borrowed power, no shared control, just structure, just precision, just mine. One afternoon, my phone rang, unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered, silence. For a second, then, Daniel, I didn't think you'd pick up, he said. His voice, different, quieter, not weak, just real. I didn't respond. I've been trying to understand, he continued. Pause, how you did it. I leaned back, looked out the window, city moving, uninterrupted. I didn't do anything. I said, silence? Then, that's not true. I smiled, small, almost invisible. I just didn't stop you. I said, that was the truth. And he knew it, because now he finally understood something he should have understood from the beginning. I didn't lose control. I gave it to him, just long enough for him to prove he never deserved it. He exhaled, slow. I lost everything, he said. Not dramatic. Just fact. I nodded. Even though he couldn't see it, I know. A pause. Long. Heavy. Why didn't you destroy me completely? He asked. There it was. The question, the one people always ask. When they survive something, they shouldn't have. I thought about it. For a second, then answered. If I destroyed you completely, pause. People would forget. Silence. So I finished it. But this? I looked at my reflection in the glass. Calm. Untouched. This lasts. No response. Because he understood, finally, that what I took from him wasn't his position. Not his money. Not even his reputation. It was something worse. The version of himself people believed in, and once that's gone, there's nothing left to rebuild. I'm sorry, he said, soft, late, real. I closed my eyes for a second, not to forgive him, not to relive anything, just to end it. I know, I said, and hung up. No anger, no satisfaction, just finished. That's the part people don't expect. Revenge. When it's done right, doesn't feel loud. It feels quiet. Because the real victory isn't watching them fall. It's knowing they'll never stand the same way again. And you don't need the room anymore. because you were never trying to belong to it. You were the reason it existed.